All right. Here we go for the first weekly roundup of the Blue Collar Intellectual podcast. It's been a trying week. So far, let's go over a few things. Hold up. Can you hear me? Testing. There we go. So, I hope everybody had a damn good week so far, because before we get into everything, I'm just going to say I am drinking a glass of Black Label. And all right, I am drinking a glass of Black Label, and we're going to make this real simple today. It's been a pretty interesting week so far. We've gotten some information from the Trump's legal team. Whether you believe it or not, whether you like the evidence or not, if the evidence is legit, I'm just going to hop right into it. If the evidence is legit, then I'm just going to throw out there's a few simple facts for anyone who hasn't really been diving deeper into this. Legislative authorities are the only authorities who have the ability to manipulate, change in any way, shape, or form the election laws that we currently have in this country. And that goes for any state. That being said, there are also laws in every state in the country. The laws requiring what counts as a validated vote. Now, in damn near every battleground state that we have that is currently being contested, what we have ballots that were not, or allegedly were not allowed to be verified by the canvassers and the lawyers from the Trump administration. Now, personally, I don't think it's going to make an impact. I personally believe that it's going to, we're still going to be saying President Biden here when we get into January. And to be honest, I'm not a Biden supporter, not by any means. I like absolutely nothing about either one of them. Although I'll say Biden and Kamala seem like they'd be likable people in person, as far as having a beer with or a drink with and just having a conversation. I don't know that I can say the same about Trump, just because of the things he says, but either way, that's not what decides whether or not I would vote for somebody in the first place. As we look at the challenges, specifically the not being able to validate votes in Pennsylvania, and the judge deciding that the ballot should be counted well after close on election day and accepted after receive. Now, that's an issue solely because it's against the state election law. And judges do not get to rewrite state election law. They can decide whether a law is constitutional or unconstitutional. They cannot decide not to follow a law entirely. They don't have that ability. So that entire premise is unconstitutional. Now, moving on from that, if that happens to get into court, and of course, if it happens to go to a higher court and they rule against, which if the judge is doing their job, that's exactly what they should do. They should not be allowing exceptions where the judiciary system gets to allow allow their they get to allow their constituents or whatever you want to say to just not follow the law. It's not how it works. Judges are supposed to interpret what is constitutional, what isn't constitutional, and judge accordingly. They're supposed to judge based on written law, and if the law is constitutional, it must be followed, even if that means that you would like to repeal the law later on for a much more convenient law. It is what it is. That's the role of a judge. Now, in regard to Nevada, the judges getting rid of signature verification. Now, in states where there are forms of voter ID laws for people voting in person, but there are no voter ID laws, and the only verification method that you had was a signature, using the judiciary to get rid of the signature verification. One, again, only the legislative branch has the ability to manipulate, change, or alter election law in any way, shape, or form. And again, that's easily researchable. It's in the Constitution. That poses a problem because it's also an equal protection. One sect of people that vote in person have to provide identification, verify their vote. The others do not. It is what it is. Again, that could easily could go to court and be struck down. Just for anyone who's heard that there's no evidence, affidavits are evidence. They've been used in evidence forever in many cases, and far less affidavits have gotten people convicted to prison. So that is a complete asinine position to hold. The idea that there was no election fraud, so now we're supposed to believe that in a system where mail-in voting of any form, the actual absentee voting system typically turns out around a 3.5% error or rejection rate. We have 0.3, if I remember correctly, I believe it's 0.37 or 0.32 that were rejected. So we're going to believe that out of all these ballots that were turned out, now they didn't just, a lot of the states didn't just go by their didn't just open up the absentee ballot system to everybody. A lot of states just mailed out mass ballots to everyone. And at first I thought it was just everyone that was of voting age. It turns out that they mailed it out to everyone that happened to be within a state, used to live there, don't live there anymore, dead, alive, eligible to vote, ineligible to vote. Just people are receiving ballots for people that haven't lived at their house in decades. I know apparently the election board sent out a ballot to one of my old addresses in California. Obviously, I don't live in California anymore. I live on a complete 3,500 miles away in New Hampshire, so that shouldn't have happened. Now, with that happening, you create a situation without signature verification. You create a situation where voter fraud is very easy. And it doesn't take a lot of people to engage in voter fraud to have a big impact when you're mailing out more ballots than you have voters, more ballots than you have eligible voters. All it takes is, say, a few people here and there to fill out 5 or 6 ballots per person. Now you combine that with not being able to verify ballots and not be able to verify signatures, and judges saying that you don't have to verify signatures. A lot of the allegations that were dropped at the press conference. Now, I personally am not a big fan of Rudy Giuliani. I think he's lost it over the years. His record as a prosecutor, I mean, you can't really argue his record as a prosecutor. He's a highly successful prosecutor. In all of this, the people that I would listen to, that I'd be more apt to listen to, would be Sidney Powell. She has a spectacular record, and unlike Rudy Giuliani, she seems to have all of her marbles. So I would say that's a good start, and she doesn't go off onto random tangents about the movie My Cousin Vinny. It was a great movie. I'm not going to knock it. I actually like it. More so, Marissa Tomei's automotive expertise in the movie is downright sexy. Girls love cars, sexy as fuck. Take a sip of my Johnny Walker because it's been that kind of week. However, as we go through everything going on right now, we're looking at these different challenges. I just want to throw out there that this idea, Joe Biden had a litigation strategy, and Donald Trump had a litigation strategy. Hillary Clinton said, "Don't concede the race." Stacey Abrams said, has still not conceded the Georgia race, and I don't see why this is a controversial subject. That at one point, and both sides did this. Both sides. I mean, Republicans made fun of Stacey Abrams for refusing to concede the race, but then they're lauding Donald Trump for not conceding the race. Then you look at Democrats who are basically doing the exact same thing. They lauded the idea of not conceding the race if it looked like there was any sort of fraud whatsoever, but then they're vilifying Donald Trump for doing the exact same. I don't see how one is not similar to the other. And this should not be a controversial thing that people fail to understand. This shouldn't be something that is completely out of the ordinary or out of the realm of possibility at this point. It's clear that there was voter fraud. We've been hearing allegations of voter fraud for decades. At least since 2000, for anyone that hasn't been paying attention. There's absolutely no reason for us to assume that this is the only election where there has not been voter fraud. So the voter fraud doesn't exist this election is a stupid position to take. Now, moving forward, look, I already am working on the idea that Joe Biden will be inaugurated, that Donald Trump, even if all of his claims, all of his legal team's claims are completely valid, I don't think it'll amount to anything within the time frame that they have to actually argue it. Their best case scenario is that they are able to substantiate their claim of voter fraud, which at this point, with all the ballots mixed in, you can't just separate ballots and award those states to Trump. It would have to go to state legislatures where they themselves would end up appointing electors to cast their ballot, or it would go to the House, in which case each state delegation gets to cast a vote, and that's each state delegation gets one vote. So it's not up to the majority of House members. It's up to the majority, basically who holds the majority of state delegations, which right now is the Republicans by a substantial amount. Again, I see no way out of any of these situations that it does not turn into some sort of violence on the other side of the election. Right now, you have 74 million people believe that Trump was cheated because there's obvious voter fraud. Whether it's enough to turn over the election or not, it's enough voter fraud that made people question the election. And both sides, before the election even took place, were alleging voter fraud. So I'm not even going to engage in the stupidity. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're looking at the actual, how to say this, if you're looking at what was actually alleged, it seems to be decently substantial. However, like I said, I don't believe it'll actually. I don't believe it'll actually turn out any results that either side will be able to accept, and I don't believe it'll actually end up changing the outcome of the election in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, at this point, it kind of is what it is. I am in the camp of conservatives need to regroup and get ready for this next round, because this next round is going to be brutal. You may not control the House, and there's a decent possibility that if we do not redirect in a very short amount of time, that we will end up losing these Senate races in Georgia as well, and that would be a problem, because that means that the left will be able to get done whatever the hell they want to get done. And to be honest, for conservatives, without winning those Senate seats, let's face it, we can't put any faith in the GOP that we currently have. We've seen too many Republicans that aren't really actually conservative. And even if they are, they lack the intestinal fortitude to actually fight for principles and have no problem with bending the knee, for lack of a better term. So, it is what it is. However, grab another sip. So, I mean, talk about this. After the election, we saw dancing in the streets and stuff like that, and both sides are loving to point out each other's hypocrisy, which I think is hypocrisy in and of itself, pointing out your opponent's hypocrisy without acknowledging your own. I don't think that's a way to move forward or be productive in any way, shape, or form. So the left, as throughout the entire pandemic, the media had made the claims that all the conservative events were super spreader events, and we didn't care about the virus, and we're all going to die, and we're all a bunch of murderers and racists and stuff like that, whatever. And at the same time, the same statements are not being made about the people dancing in the streets celebrating, the peaceful protest that took place during the daytime when it was actually peaceful, and the looting and rioting in the late evening, early mornings. The same allegations were not made. And I can completely admit that. And I will say that the right did a disservice to the peaceful protest that took place during the day by trying to equate them with the rioting and looting at night. And love to point out the lack of mask wearing and social distancing and all of that, while completely ignoring the campaign events and things of that sort. So both sides are ridden with hypocrisy. There's no way to get around it. There's no way to justify it. It's absolutely stupid at this point. This isn't even something that we should be arguing. We should be talking about ideas and principles and solutions on how to move forward and change what we do in these upcoming weeks and months. We should be, as conservatives, we should be focusing on these Senate races. We should be making our case. Donald Trump is not on the ballot in these races, which means that there's going to be a suffering in the turnout area, unless something major changes. The DNC still has not released Kevin Daniels, who's a Black outreach director, and Coach Felicia got to speak with him and have a meeting with him. And without releasing him, we're once again in a situation where I don't see what we're actually going to get from this. And if we can't make a change and pivot very quickly, it's all going to be over. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated as hell. Because as conservatives, we never should have been here. There were people offering good advice and good political analysis and saying that we were traveling down the wrong path and we didn't have to be here in this situation right now. And lo and behold, this is exactly where we are. If we had ditched the talking points throughout this entire election cycle, we could have been in a much, 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 much different place. However, yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, you can't rewind the clock. All you can do is learn from your mistakes. So I'm going to go with mistake number one. Trump never matured as from a candidate into a president, a leader. Now, that's not to say that he didn't have his moments, because State of the Union Donald Trump, even Van Jones had to admit it. State of the Union Donald Trump, his first State of the Union, and even his second one, spectacular. Spectacular. If that was a Donald Trump that showed up to the mic every damn day, we'd be having a completely different conversation right now. If the explanation of why you were doing certain things and the leading by inspiration and all that had taken place during the pandemic, again, we'd be having a much different conversation. We spent 4 years of everyone getting excited and wanting to own the liberals at every point in turn. And that basically ended up with us in an election that we should have won in a landslide. So here it is. Obviously, for anyone who's paid any attention, the polls were wrong. They were off by about 6 to 8 points. Another roundup. Fox News has not all of a sudden gone liberal. They were already there. The entire political spectrum over decades has shifted to the left. And it's just natural as you start to engage in leftist policies, as you start to grow the government never seeks to shrink itself. I mean, no government in history has ever actually done that, at least not to my recollection. And over the years, you have Ivy League Republicans that believe that they can manage society better than the average person can manage their own lives, that they can manage your life for you and make your decisions for you. And it's a basic elitist sort of point of view of the world that a few people in Washington and their cocktail lounge think that they can organize society to their liking and we'll all fall in line and just be okay with it. It's not the case. So the Fox News basically siding with the Republicans just for people that don't get the dynamics of what's going on in the conservative camp, because the party dynamics they're equal the amount of dynamics within the party on the right as there on the left. So this really should not be a surprise to anyone at this point. The dynamics are very simple. Fox News is pretty establishment, except for their opinions, or their opinion portion, like Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and things of that sort. For the most part, their news desk is pretty rhino establishment Republican. And there's a civil war within both parties right now. The socialists are trying to take over the party from the establishment Democrats, the populist socialist movement over there, and then you have the populist conservative movement that does not want to go for another round of foreign wars and corporate bailouts and another round of cronyism where we elect people to do one thing and they do the exact opposite. So again, trying to call it down the line, trying to admit where both sides have fucked up, trying to admit where we need to, I'd say, pivot and do something different. Sorry. Y'all are blowing up my damn phone. Chill out. So, in other news, the left is actually starting to eat itself. Like I said, there's a civil war going on within both parties. There's a civil war within both parties. Both parties are trying to get rid of the establishment, and this shouldn't be a foreign concept for anyone. The establishment are very simply the people that seek power over everything, and that establishment that seeks power over everything, they'll glom on to any movement to get it. So you have people that will pretend to be MAGA, while MAGA is what get them what they want, and then you have people that will be anti-MAGA because they think that will get them what they want. Fox News put out a poll, which I think is them utterly shilling for Mitt Romney, which Mitt Romney's a joke. They're shilling for Mitt Romney, and they want him to be the next. They want him to be the next president. He's a big government cronyist, corporate bailout, foreign wars kind of guy. He'll be soft in all the social issues and stuff like that, which I don't understand the social issues. This shouldn't be something that people are actually arguing over. If you're really a conservative and you judge based on the Constitution, not based on your own particular life views, then you should not actually be trying to change somebody's social choices or limit or ban their social choices, as long as their social choices are not a direct attack on your own ability to live your own life. This means gay marriage. For instance, I support gay marriage. Why? Because it's a civil rights issue. You have the right to marry any consenting adult as a consenting adult. I don't see why this should be arguable to anyone. Religious aside, I'm a Christian. I don't have to agree with that lifestyle. It doesn't fucking matter. To me, it doesn't affect the character of the person standing in front of me. We're all born of sin, so it is what it is. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. I actually live by that idea. Same with I live by the idea of my 80% friend is not my 20% enemy. You don't have to 100% agree with me. We can work together as far as we can to achieve a common goal. I don't understand why that's a foreign concept to people. Like, for instance, I'm a Christian. I don't have a problem with non-Christians living in this country. And I don't want to force Christianity down anyone's throat. Another thing is adoption. Why are we telling perfectly fine parents that they can't adopt kids because you disagree with their life choices? Fuck you. Fuck your judgment. These kids deserve a family. All right? We have too many people grow up in the foster system, too many people that grow up without parents. And you know what? Every single one of them would be better with a loving parent, even if that parent has different life choices than you have. So get off your fucking high horse. Personally, taxes, healthcare, any choice, to be honest. You can make any choice in your own life. I don't care what it is. It doesn't affect me. The only thing I really care about is that if you're going to make that choice, and don't ask me to fund it, don't raid my wallet for it, don't force me to like it. I don't have to like it. You get to live your life the way you want to live your life. I don't have to like your choices. That's not what I'm here for. However, so I'm watching leftists or liberals, basic voters, people that believe in the ideology, they're not far left Antifa wanting to burn everything down, and they're not far right um, anarchists. Just throwing that out there. Oh, that's another thing. There's no such thing as a far right neo-Nazi, fuckers. All right? Neo-Nazis are socialists. They're national socialists. All right? There's no such thing as a far right neo-Nazi. Socialists are on the far, 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 far left with the communists and the Marxist collectivists of any form. So why the fuck are we, if your only characterization of what is far right or what is far left is the race issue, which race aside, I keep hearing the Nazi term get levied at people who are anti-Semitic or who are racist. No, you're just a bigot. You're just a racist, anti-Semitic sack of shit. It has nothing to do with being a Nazi. Not being a Nazi is an ideology. It's both an economic and a political ideology. And yes, it comes with anti-Semitism and racism. But the core of it is National Socialism and the vehicle of what it takes to achieve that, which they believe was the genocide of pretty much everybody else but the Aryan race. So, food for thought. The actual political spectrum is anarchists on one end, authoritarian dictatorship monarchies, totalitarians, all on the other end. So you have anarchists, fuck it, no government at all, maximum government. And you have a myriad of systems spanning that entire spectrum. And then you have the establishment that just want to be at the top of whatever ideology they can glom onto to achieve their power and their wealth. Again, not a hard concept to understand. All right, and you can always tell who the establishment are because they'll always act in their own interests rather than the interests of the people that they claim to represent. That's why you'll see activists that will get filthy, filthy rich without ever solving the problem. You'll see politicians that continue to get elected without ever delivering results. And this doesn't just happen on the left, this happens on the right too. There are plenty of activists that started charities and accomplished nothing. There are plenty of politicians that have gotten elected and accomplished absolutely fucking nothing. Well, once again, not something that's hard to understand. Now, another thing, this fleeing Twitter and Facebook for Parler. Now, I take an issue with this, mostly because if you're going to Parler, if everyone in the conservative movement leaves for Parler all at once, what you end up with is creating an echo chamber. Now, this echo chamber, you'll hear conservative ideas, and guess who else will go to Parler? Extremists. Now, they don't have to act like extremists. As far as where I rank globalists in that spectrum, globalists are very much at the far left with the dictators, authoritarians. When you're globalist is more of a trade issue, but the political aspect of being a globalist, it's basically deciding that nations cannot act as sovereigns in and of themselves and that they must succumb to the whims of, say, the United Nations or NATO or something of that sort. They would definitely be on the far left. Any ideology that forces another culture, another state, people who do not interact with you in your daily life and don't affect your ability to live on your own and do your own thing, to bend the knee. So I hope that answered for you. It's nice to hear from you, Dolman. It's been a long time. Now, as far as the far right goes, the anarchists, I mean, there's relatively few of them. Damn near everybody. I mean, a lot of anarchists think they're anarchists, but they're not really. They're kind of like anarcho-libertarian, which it gets to like the extreme. That's where you get the unpragmatic versions of how to achieve basically a libertarian paradise, which is sort of a rip the band-aid off and let everybody get fucked sort of attitude. I'm not personally for that. I think that's counterproductive. I think you've lost the argument before you even start at that point. So it is what it is. Is what it is. Like I said, I personally don't believe that do a little tweeting for a moment. Personally, I don't believe any of that's productive. I don't believe lumping each other into the extremes just to make a point is productive. I think it actually drives us into our corners and makes us less likely to be able to have a legitimate conversation with each other. And conversations like that, statements like that, we can never move forward if we're always taking a position of being completely contrarian or reactive to what the other camp is doing. It means we're always going to be pushing, taking up a position that we don't actually believe in. We're always going to be pushed into doing something we don't actually believe in. It's just not a productive thing to do. Take another sip. In other news, pop culture, the Mike Tyson-Roy Jones Jr. fight is coming up. And I got my money on Tyson. Got my money on Tyson right now. Roy Jones Jr. is the only boxer I've ever seen that can string together a 27-punch combo. I know I was talking to Yancey about that earlier. And Miss Pinky, we were talking about that earlier. I still think it basically comes down to who lands the biggest hit first. If Roy Jones Jr. can stun Tyson to the point where he doesn't want to move in on him, then he can draw the fight into the later rounds where Tyson has less of a chance of actually winning. If Roy Jones Jr. cannot stun Tyson, Tyson stuns Roy first with either a body blow or a head hit and makes Roy a little bit more timid and less able to, or rocks him enough that he can land bigger hits and he can't string together those 20-plus hit combos. It's going to be a much different fight. It'll go on a lot longer, and we're going to end up with a completely different. We're going to end up with exactly what I expect is a Mike Tyson ass whooping, just absolutely throwing it down. Which, hey, like I said, I got my money on Mike Tyson, so that wouldn't actually hurt my feelings at all. We also have, as far as I'm a big Marvel fan, so New Mutants just came out on Vudu. New Mutants just came out on Vudu, and I am going to be watching tonight. It's going to be absolutely fucking awesome. I'm excited about this. I was supposed to do an interview yesterday with Dr. Darrell Scott, the the head of Trump's Black Advisory Board, but we had to reschedule. We're working on trying to schedule that out now, and we'll see what happens. I will be having Coach Felicia on in the near future again for another interview, and hopefully we'll be already got a few people lined up that I'd like to interview. Like Wayne Dupree said he'd come on do an interview. I want to have a libertarian panel on. I want to explore the libertarian ideology because I feel like there's a lot of different misconceptions that we have in regards to what it is, what libertarianism actually is. And I would like to do the same. I'd like to have a women's panel. And so far, I have 3 out of the 5 guests have said that they have no problem coming on to do it. So we'll be doing that soon too. As soon as I get that set up. I hope to have a few other guests on. It'll be interesting these next couple weeks as things start to move a little bit faster. And I'll be putting out more content in the near future. Again, new to this Blue Collar Intellectual podcast. Today is not really that intellectual. It's more me drinking scotch and just having a conversation. Just having a conversation because I see no reason that we have to be formal and always driven towards a specific goal at any point in time. All right. So I don't know if any of you guys have noticed this lately, but it seems like Twitter is purging some followers of my account. I randomly had like 30 followers get purged off my account and then re-add me. So please, if you haven't already, go to YouTube, Blue Collar Intellectual, and like the watch the videos, like them, share them, subscribe, click the little bell so you get notifications. We'll be coming out with more random in the moment streams when something is so important that it needs to drop immediately. Again, I don't want to do what everyone else does and be the guy that tap dances for parties and shit, because to be honest, I mean, let's be real, the parties don't give a shit about us. I mean, we just saw I'm a conservative. We just watched this election. The Lincoln Project came out, and that's basically who's been running the party. That mentality has been running the party. And if you think the people that actually join the organization are the only people in the organization, you'd be wrong. There are many people who have that like ideology, but they're currently in government and couldn't do it because let's face it, the MAGA agenda is what was driving the party these last 4 years. And if Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham had sided with the Lincoln Project, it would have been primaried out. I'm absolutely certain of that. Yeah. And all these Lincoln Project people, we need to make sure as conservatives that we keep them out of the party. There's no form of conservatism. Like, I understand conservatives that vote for as much conservatism as they can get at the moment, and you end up having to sacrifice some things to get other things. That's a logical thing. I mean, that's a logical thought process. But that's not what's happening on the left. There is no conservatism there to be had. So the idea that these people supported Biden rather than just trying to hold Trump's feet to the fire makes absolutely no sense. It's an asinine concept. So we need to make sure that they are not welcome back in the party, and they're already vying for power positions within the party. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen. These people are utterly useless in every way, shape, or form. They are very much the people that did not outreach to minority communities because they believed that there was absolutely no point. They are very much the people that created the talking points, constantly talking shit about the minority communities around the country, simply because they need to excuse the fact that they were worthless at trying to outreach to them. This is the party that these are the type of people that were completely fine with blowing up the budget as long as they were the ones in charge. These are the people who had no problem with foreign wars all over the damn world for no particular reason whatsoever. And lying to the American people. They have no problem raising taxes whenever it benefits them. They had no problem with violations of the Constitution whenever it happened to benefit them. They had no problem with acquiescing and giving further and further power to the executive branch and ignoring the balance of power within Washington. So, we really need to stop and look at what's going on here and see if maybe we can change the dynamics within the Republican Party. Again, like I said, I'm not a Republican. I'm a conservative. I don't register, or I will only register for a party to vote. But I'm a conservative. I identify myself by my principles and the ideas that I believe in, not by whatever party happens to be screaming the loudest at the moment, not by the party itself. I don't believe identifying by party unless you're an elected representative for the Republican Party, you're a part of the party structure. I see no value that comes from identifying yourself as a Republican. To me, it basically seems like when you identify yourself as a Republican that you have no other thought process other than whatever the party tells you their platform is. And I think we need to make the party acquiesce to our demands as voters, not let them decide what their agenda is instead of listening to us. If you're representing a people, you do not need to decide what your agenda is and ignore what the voters tell you to do. You're being hired for a job. You do what the fuck you're told. Again, very, very simple concept. And I keep hearing this from liberals that if conservatives in Congress had actually acted conservative over the years, actually, die on the hill, for lack of a better word, or lack of a better phrase, they would actually agree and be conservative. They actually wouldn't have a problem with what we're talking about over here. Which again, I think is something positive. So it's been a long week. I used to joke about how we don't need Hollywood, we don't need movies, but we need to blow off steam, and there's nothing else to watch. You realize how hard it is to blow off steam. Now, personally, there's only so much wood you can chop outside. I always have fun going shooting, but based on where everything's going right now, I think I should save ammo, especially given the cost and the ability to find it. Sports, again, I'm a Patriots fan. Doesn't seem like we're having that great of a season. I still watch. I'll still enjoy my team. We'll get better. We'll get better. Cam Newton's is having a rough time. Bill Belichick's trying to rebuild the team. However, yeah, it is what it is. It's not a one-man game. So I fully expect the next big argument online to be Roy Jones Jr. or Mike Tyson. And if it's not, I question you. I seriously question you. We're going to have issues. So I would like to see more people out here starting podcasts. I'm going to have more guests on. Maybe have Maybe have Shakim on. Pod Wasted, Jonesy. Hopefully we can get Sonny Johnson on the podcast. Hopefully might even be able to get David Webb on here. Keep growing it and having real conversations and just do something a little bit different. I think podcast long-form conversations are much better. They're much more realistic. We can get away from the talking points and actually get to solutions if we put forth the effort. And real conversations are how we're going to move everything forward at this point. The my team versus your team, political thuggery and gangbanging, I don't think helps anybody. I mean, ultimately, it ends up leading us down a path of mutual self-destruction. We're all too happy to destroy ourselves, and the people who are feeding us these talking points just get to sit up in their ivory tower and watch it happen. Don't misunderstand. I'm not some burn it down type of guy. I'm completely reasonable. I'm the reasonable one. But I think throughout the next couple of years, both parties got some serious work to do. I'm hoping. Now, personally, I disagree. I know a lot of liberals believed what they were getting with Joe Biden is they were getting a less radical ideology and portion of the party. And I can completely understand that mentality. I can completely understand the idea of thinking that you're getting something different. I just disagree. I think you're not getting the overt in your face path to lightning speed flat path to socialism. You're getting a slower path that just passes through an air of cronyism, which cronyism is what the right is trying to purge right now. And that's going to be a hard fight, this civil war that's taking place. This year sucks. Absolutely sucks. I mean, James Bond got taken out by this. Every time someone dies, especially someone big that's been around for a long time, I have to wonder, is Betty White still alive? Everybody check on Betty White. That's like the first thing I do is when someone big dies, I'm like, fuck, everybody check on Betty White. Make sure she's still alive. If she's alive, we have hope. If 2020 takes out Betty White, we're fucked. We gotta at least make it to New Year's. I can excuse it if it happens in a different year. Kind of disappointed. We're in the middle of an apocalypse, and we still are not driving around in Mad Max vehicles. There is an extreme lack of leather clothing, so our zombie apocalypse outfits are not on point yet. Why do we not have swords? And yeah, this apocalypse sucks. This pseudo apocalypse blows. Either way, I'll have more serious videos. This is a weekly roundup. Everything going on with the election fraud. Again, let Trump exhaust his options. All right, it has nothing to do with whether he actually has a chance of winning or not. It has everything to do with he has the right to exhaust his options the same way Hillary did, and she chose not to. The same way Biden did, and he just happens to not be on that side. It just happened to turn out the way he wanted it to. So everyone has the right to make their requisite legal challenges, and the constant bullying to concede the election or whatever. Again, we have multiple candidates over the years that haven't conceded the election, so the idea that we need to all of a sudden set a new standard and you're tearing down democracy if you don't concede is absolutely stupid. Let's get real. I did see that there's multiple gun laws on the chopping block. Like I said, ammo is getting expensive. A couple of cool new guns have come out so far. I'm a Marine. I found a Marine K-bar sword, which is pretty freaking cool. Pretty freaking cool. I'll show a picture of that in next time I do a weekly roundup. College football sucks at this point. We have teams that aren't playing. We have teams that can't play. It seems like every week we have a team that had a single COVID case, so we're shutting everything down. States are shutting back down again. I don't think people are looking at the other side effects of this virus. Since the lockdown started, a lot of men attribute the mental health of men is affected by our ability to provide. And when you can't provide, it starts to affect the mental health, and people start to attempt suicide. Along with the veteran suicide rate and active duty suicide rate for military members have gone up. The suicide rates across every demographic have increased over this pandemic. And we're also seeing weird shit, like a guy dies in a car crash, but he counts as a COVID death because he was asymptomatic with COVID when he died. Which, why the fuck are we testing a corpse? That makes absolutely no sense to me. The guy friggin' lost his head in a car accident. Why are we testing a corpse? It's pretty clear he's dead because he lost his head, right? Do we need to do a test on him? Oh, wait, that's right. You guys tied money to just having a case. It leads me to another thing. We've redefined what a case is. A case used to be that you had to have symptoms of a virus and require treatment. It's not a case if you have the virus but you have no symptoms and you don't require treatment. It's just you have the virus. You're a carrier. It's not a case. You don't require any treatment. You don't require any measures or whatever. You just gotta just not be a fucking dumbass. Which I think this whole damn virus could have been handled completely different. If the media weren't out for Trump's throat the entire time, I think he would have handled it different. But at the same time, if he had handled it different and came out like a completely different president or a different guy during those press conferences, who knows? The media might have laid off and been like, hey, this is serious enough. Maybe we should take it seriously and not try to use it to score political points against a guy that we hate. So I think there's plenty of blame to go around here because we were unable to discuss anything throughout this entire pandemic with any sort of nuance whatsoever. We're heading down a pretty dim path if we keep this up. It's kind of sad. That's fucking depressing, honestly. It really is. So, it is what it is. Anyway, well, for the weekly roundup, next time I come with more whiskey, bourbon, or scotch, and more details. But this is me checking in with you for the week, and everyone have a good night. Remember, the world's not over. We can all get to the other side of this. We can have real conversations. We can actually get shit done. God bless. Stay frosty.